Welcome on stage, Chris Lindland. First of all,
sure.
It's so much fun to be on your site.
Okay.
So can you tell me for how long does the average visitor stay on your site?
Wow, that's a statistic I used to know. It's probably about 2 or 3 minutes now.
So you managed to make functional clothes really cool.
That's what we try to do. We put out a new product every day.
And tell us, how did you do that?
What we try to do more than anything else is to try to build a story around each product. We have a figure of speech called fashion forwardable. So it has to be something that's interesting enough to forward on to somebody else. So for every new product we invent, there has to be some component to it, whether it's the construction of the product, the photos of the product, the name, the purpose that makes it interesting enough to forward on to a friend.
You will tell your story.
I will tell my story now. Well, all right. This is your English lesson for the morning. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's been fascinating. I've never been to Sweden before. I'm 10% Swedish, so if there's anything intelligent that I say, you can attribute that to yourselves. Anything stupid, I'm 90% Norwegian, so you can blame it on them. My speech today is going to be about traffic and ultimately getting attention on the internet. The examples that I'm going to give come from way back when I started this company. And all along, the purpose of marketing for our company is before we had money to spend on marketing, all we could do is get attention. So for people who are interested in making startups, where you begin, and of course you've got no marketing dollars at all, treat these as lessons about how to think, about communicating what you make, and how you can make people want to pay attention to you. So we are now a clothing company that has 60 employees. We sell to people all over the earth. But the premise behind our company is to have the internet build a clothing company. When you think about clothing companies and how they come to be, surfing companies begin with the identity of surf. Skateboarding companies begin within the culture of skateboarding. What we're trying to do is start a clothing company that begins in the culture of the internet, the communication medium that we use every day, that we pay attention to nonstop, the language that comes of it, the lifestyle that comes from it, the identity that people create from being active and users in the internet. So our customers are building the company for us. So these are all photos of people who wear our clothing. We have about 30 to 40, I think it's about 35,000 photos that have been submitted by customers who become the models on our website. As you can see, our customers are taking our brand to meet people like Kim Jong-un. This is a customer who is being a translator in North Korea. But the fascinating thing for me and my company is watching the experiences that my customers have and then having them help me tell the story. So the important thing to remember is that our fans or our customers, they design our clothing, they submit designs to us all the time, they model for us, they are our tastemakers, they spread the products, and they're risk takers. When products are made on Betabrand, for an example, we're pretty much the Kickstarter of clothing. Every new product, every day we put a new product out, and the question to our customers is, should we make it or not? We make one prototype, we photograph it. If people pay for it, then we go ahead and manufacture them. So there's no risk in inventory right there for every new idea. This adds up to tens of thousands of photos, thousands of design, and that yields hundreds of products. So again, every single day, for men and women, there's a new product. Why this is logical, I'm first talking about why this whole company came to be, and then I'll start giving you examples of how we get attention, is that, I really mean it when I say this, is that there's this incredibly powerful thing that we're all just sort of figuring out how to use. We all have to remember that when we were children, the internet didn't exist. It existed, but none of us used it. And what's amazing is that it's shaping the way we think about everything. And for us, it's about what does a clothing company mean? Not just making clothing, trying to get people to wear it, but why they wear it and how they communicate with people when they own the clothing. So our goal with each product is fashion forwardability. And this is something that you can think about for your companies. What makes it interesting? Why does someone want to talk about it? Really, ask that question. Oftentimes, the people want to talk about it for different reasons, but to actually dissect that and to think, why is it that someone would be interested in my e-commerce service? Why is it that someone would be interested in buying something from my site instead of another one? What's interesting about the customer service experience? What's interesting about the product, and why would it make a person feel different if they own it? So again, fashion forwardability, that's the figure of speech that I use to train everyone who comes to work for our company. Be you a designer, be you an engineer, if you work in customer service, what is it about your communication with people that makes them smile, provokes thought, anything that makes them want to forward it on to somebody else? So to go back the history, so for anyone who's starting a startup, this was my original idea. Quarter-rounds, horizontal corduroy pants. This was just sort of a web joke that I created. The objective was to sell corduroy pants where the whales went this way instead of that way. Incredibly innovative, I know. And that was the joke, right? So I spent a lot of time talking about how insanely innovative these pants were. And so I talked about the aerodynamics, you know, because the wind will actually blow by you instead of getting caught in the cords. It will reduce your crotch heat index because there's less friction here. So of course, as you can imagine, this made for funny conversation on the internet. And when I started this company, I started at my garage. I started it for $5,000. And within a month of starting it, it was covered in the New York Times. It was covered in the New Yorker and Newsweek, all big publications in the United States. But of course, you know, that just begins a process of people talking about it all over the world, which of course made me, the one-man clothing company, subject of this great story in Sweden. And when I spoke to the journalist, I said, well, the amazing thing about them is that when you wear them to a bar, women will touch your leg, and they'll say, oh, they go the other direction. And this is true. And of course, hundreds of Swedish men bought them immediately. True story. It was one of the, when the company was small, this was one of the greatest pieces of press we had, and it was hilarious to watch one address after another from Stockholm come in. And I'm sure all the men that had them, they came back. There's a couple in the audience, I believe. Some exciting people that introduced me here. But the fun thing is that that became a conversation with a Swedish audience that we have. And remember, this is me, a one-person clothing company in San Francisco that now has a Swedish audience. It wasn't big, and I had no marketing budget at all at the time. But I created a product that was worthy of web conversation. Next product, good example. Do you have the figure of speech in Sweden to be the black sheep of the family? If you do, well, obviously there must be a black sheep of the family in every family, so that's a huge marketplace. So I was the one who said, well, why don't we figure out how to isolate the black wool from the white and make sweaters out of it? And it was one of the most popular products we've ever had. So if there's this black sheep of the family, obviously that person shouldn't be wearing a sweater made out of white wool. So I made it for them. And that was one of the funniest adventures I had because I had to go find, from San Francisco, I flew to Scotland. I flew to Scotland and failed, and then I went to Ireland and succeeded at finding a mill that would isolate the black sheep from the white. Another observation that's significant, and think about this when you're beginning to communicate with different audiences online. There are certain audiences that are knit together through Twitter and blogs. And I discovered one, which was people who are commuters and cyclists, because they're not just into cycling, it's activism. So I discovered within a month that there's thousands of bike bloggers around the world. And I'd said, well, why don't you make pants that are good to bike to work in? And nobody else had done it. Well, the fascinating thing is I created so much web press on this. And again, this is when I was a one-person company. So much, and we're talking thousands of websites pointing to my site, that when Levi's, a billion-dollar company, followed me into this market two years later, all the marketing dollars they spend, because of all the websites that pointed at my company, every ad dollar they spent to drive people to Google to find it, I would show up as the first example. Because, as we know, you create search engine optimization through the number of websites that point to your company. Fascinating, because I, a one-person company, was competing with a billion-dollar company, and when you search for us on Google, I showed up first. Again, a significant thing. Think about the audiences that you're communicating to and how much they can amplify the message that you have. Last year, we had grown enough that we decided to start working with women, and I thought, well, what's a way for us to actually connect with women in a way that's larger than just making clothing for them. So I asked women who are only PhDs to be the models. These are women who had doctorates. And we cast a wide net and got about 40 women to come with PhDs and model for us. And that became not just news for women in San Francisco, it became a global debate of whether this is important. You know, why is it that women aren't celebrated for their intelligence and only their looks? So this became a huge thing. In 1 year, we grew from a business that had 5% of our customers being female to 50% in 1 year's time. So that's really, really fast to change and grow your audience that quickly. And it's because we said, let's start with the smartest women. Why? Because they like to talk to each other. And since they're smart, they're great at speaking with each other. And they've got a very loud voice on the internet. Our most popular product for women are yoga pants that you can wear to the office. So there's a controversy here. At many big companies in the United States, yoga pants are not allowed. It's blasphemy to wear yoga pants to work. And these are secret yoga pants. So you can actually, there's a figure of speech called the glass ceiling. And we spoke of there being a spandex ceiling that's imposed by the men in the organization. And so this has been a hugely successful product for us. But the important thing to note here is that on Twitter, if you create something that is equally loved and hated, then the amplification is incredible. And it's a strange thing because we only want to be loved by the stuff that we have online. We only want positive feedback. But negative feedback balanced with positive feedback is incredible because then it becomes a debate. So there's many women who are saying, this is the end of Western civilization, that they're making yoga pants for the office. And then there are many that were saying, thank you, you have saved me from wearing uncomfortable clothing. Silicon Valley has never had a fashion show. I staged one 2 weeks ago. And it was the greatest media stunt in history for me and for our brand. It was the observation that everybody would think that people in Silicon Valley have no sense of style. Everyone wears hoodies and jeans. That's all we wear to work. That's all we ever wear. So we created a fashion week where drones carried clothing down the runway and robots. And it was 50% joke, 50% serious. But because it was this never done before thing, it was the first time ever, when it came up, there was probably 40 members of the media who came to attend this thing. And so as a result, this fashion show that I put on became global news. So this is just, we have to. It's a necessary part of everything we do to first ask, who wants to talk about this? And in this instance, it was incredible. It was, yeah, okay, we're going to replace supermodels with drones. Good enough story. Was able to get us covered all over the place. It's important that everybody remembers the medium that we're working in here is the internet. The internet, as everybody knows, is disgusting. The internet, as everybody knows, is filled with pornography and other weird things. Language on the internet is dirty. And so when you have to remember this in everything you do, because you're always one website away from porno on the internet. This is not something that you would find in a shopping mall. So when we think about products to make, as you can see, these are poo emojis on shoes. This is an incredibly popular product in the last year because poo emojis have become the most common form of communication, as it turns out, among teenagers. Thank you, internet. Right? So that's the thing that's strange about it. So we were the company that said, all right, well, let's just treat it like a pattern like anything else. The poo emoji of today is the polo pony of 20 years ago. So we created clothing with poo emojis, and we've sold thousands. It's also important to remember that people love to talk about the internet. They love to talk about new websites and new ideas and marketing ideas. So there was a XXX domain that came out about 4 years ago. And we were the first online retailer to create a XXX version of our own website. Of course, it wasn't real pornography. It was fake pornography. But as you can imagine, this was news in all the design community and all the tech blogs because we were the first to become a XXX version of our clothing company. And so you can imagine that this information gets shared, and people could actually shop through this terrible version of our website that had all these pop-ups and terrible things. So again, not real pornography, fake pornography, but a funny way to shop for clothing. Last year, we lost a UX developer for our site. he went to get paid a lot more money to go work at Google. So we had to then find a new UX developer. And it's very hard to recruit in Silicon Valley because it's very competitive. So what we did is we made our homepage disgusting. We made it the oldest, worst. It looked like it was a homepage designed in 1996. And it specifically said we need a new UX developer. Well, as you can imagine, all the UX community websites then had to write about it immediately, and we had about 100 people apply for the job. Because again, it wasn't just us saying, hey, let's put the job on a job site. We purposely made our homepage look awful for a couple days. But the result, of course, is we had a huge bump in traffic because everybody thought that was a funny joke. One thing that you notice is when you advertise on Facebook, you can pour in hundreds of hundreds of images and hundreds of pieces of copy, and then algorithmically discover what is the most popular. Well, we kept discovering over and over again that this picture of a crotch was the most effective, most clicked on advertisement. Not intentional, just a weird part of the internet. So, naturally, then I wrote an important press release to share this with the e-commerce world, that crotch-focused advertising is the most effective, and we shared all of our click data. As you can imagine, this is the kind of stuff that people want to read about because it has to do with the work that we do every day here. We think about the optimization of things, we think about click rates, we think about the efficacy of advertisement, but then to discover that it's just focused photos of men's crotches is actually funny for everybody. And the same experiment we did with a model where we gave him different flavors of beard to then learn what is the most effectively clicked upon beard. So this is important style information for men because we now know that without a doubt, it's actually beard number 6 that's the most popular. So Sebastian over there is the most clicked upon person here because of his beard length. What was actually depressing for the model here is he was a designer at Betabrand. He discovered that the beard that he had naturally was the least clicked upon by both men and women. So it was a very serious existential crisis for him. So our brand is based on the idea of getting involvement from everybody. I mean, what we want to do is get people invested, not only by giving feedback to products that come out, but also to pay for the product to determine that, yes, we should buy that inventory. So the think tank has been fascinating because we get idea after idea after idea to come in. And one thing that's been awesome we've discovered is that you can get just as good of press for an idea, i.e. a sketch of a product, as you can with a prototype of a product. So the amazing thing about the internet is that we are obsessed with new ideas, whatever it may be, and we've learned that we can get a guy invented a suit that was a zip-up suit, and he submitted it one day. And I was giving a speech to people at Pepsi's organization, and I got calls from the Today Show, which is a big TV show in the United States, wanting to interview the guy who created the Suitsy. And I had never even heard of this. And the amazing thing is that because it's an idea online, that's enough. The amount that you invest in it can be very small. But there's always a publication that wants to tell a story about it. So when you think about how much you invest in something, or when it's ready for the world to talk about it, sometimes it has to be what in the technology world we call vaporware, which is it doesn't even exist. And so in some ways, our clothing company is vaporware, but it's clothing, like activewear, but we make vaporware. And then once enough people are interested in it, we actually manufacture it. So the idea, again, we all think of funnels here. There's thousands and thousands of ideas that come into Betabrand, yielding tens of thousands of votes. We get email addresses from this. It gives us feedback on how we should manufacture something. And we create hundreds of products that people want. So now, again, every day at Betabrand, you see the product of this process, and new products come to life that you can purchase. Why this is significant is that we're always new. And we've become a trusted source for so many blogs that are looking for new content. And as we all know, or if you talk to anybody who's in publishing now, their obligation is to post between 3 and 5 times a day. And the fashion world is really bad at giving new content to post in style. And we're a business that's generating content as clothing so quickly that we will always be news. So every few days, some major publication in the United States writes a story about Betabrand. And it's because we're aware that the journalists need content. So we create clothing-based content for them. Important thing here, my objective, of course, is not only to educate you about PR, but to convince all of you to shop at Betabrand. There's a discount code you can use to get 20% off. We ship to Sweden, and I expect about 700 orders by the end of the day. The final thing that I want to show you is a video, and I think it really speaks to me every time I look at this, because it's touching on what's magical about the connection that you can make to your customers and the world that they can show you about your own company. We ask our customers to send in photos, but they also send in videos. And there are these pants that we make, and I recommend that everybody own a pair, and they look like a disco ball. They actually send light around you when you wear them. And an amazing invention. But the people in the parachuting and base jumping community really love them. And I started to learn this as we got more and more photos and videos coming in that are astonishing. So we asked them to create a video for us, and the result can now be seen on the big screen here as soon as it comes up. So I've never traveled to any of these places, but they showed it to me.
Let's go!
So the closing message with this image is that the internet is a tool that you can use to promote yourself, to actually get ideas that come to you and to present them outwards. And in this example, I've been able to see that my customers actually brought the entire world to my clothing company. I've never been to any of those places, and they're acting as these promoters out there for us. So if you look through everything that I've said today, the common thread is this. The internet is there to work with you to the sake of promoting what you do, whether they be contributors of content, whether they be journalists that need stories to tell, or whether they be designers who wish to have their ideas come to life by way of your company. So that is the Betabrand presentation. I think I'll be answering questions at some point. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Thank you, Chris.
Very awesome.